We can be seated. It is now my joy and honor to call up Melanie Bachrach to give our Dvar Torah this morning. I want to say first that we are already so fortunate to have your voice here from the Bima in so many ways, reading Torah, leading davening, as a gabbai, and of course, you are our teacher in all those different ways. And now we are so lucky to have you to be our teacher this morning in a different way, in a new way. And I just can't wait to hear your teaching. And you're so beloved. I know you know this, but we sometimes need to say it too. You are so beloved in this community, and I knew that from the moment I arrived, and I'm so happy to be calling you up today. All right. It's different than Minyan Chaverim, where we just kind of riff, right? Oh, it's coming, David. It's coming. Yes. I managed to find this folder buried in a box of things that has like the drafts, it has teachings and some random 7th grade essay that apparently got lost in my bat mitzvah stuff that I probably had to re-handwrite at the time. Thank you, Rabbi Magdala, and thank you for your help this week. It was really nice to learn with you this week and to work with you on this, and I really do appreciate that. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and thank you for indulging me on this double chai celebration in case you didn't know for some reason. But this, my bat mitzvah was originally January 13th, 1987. Back in those days at Beth El, the B mitzvah didn't do a speech. You did the introduction to the Haftorah. And I happen to have those note cards right here. Somebody else remembers the introduction to the Haftorah, right? So I'm going to read that to you and then take a few moments to expand on that a little bit today. So it was even color coded in one of those pens that like had the red and the green and the blue and the black, right? Yeah, I was very fancy. All right, so the Haftorah for this Shabbat is taken from the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel was a prophet among the exiled Jews in Babylonia in approximately 550 BCE. Among his achievements was the establishment of the first synagogue outside of Israel. Ezekiel was one of the prophets who kept Israel alive during the exile to Babylonia. He comforted them and inspired them, first with his famous vision of the Valley of Dry Bones, in which Israel is predicted to rise up out of exile, and second, his prophecy that Israel will be one nation again. It says over on it. In the Haftorah, Ezekiel gives the message from God that someday all the tribes of Israel will be reunited. There is a similar theme in my Torah portion in which Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, and all the children of Jacob are together once more. So then it tells you to please follow along as I chant, because you do it right before the Haftorah. That's when you used to do it. That was the bar mitzvah speech at the time, right? So that's how long it took. And if you want to stop by during the Kiddush, I'm happy to show you those and a few pictures if you're interested in seeing those. But with permission of the rabbis, I would like to take a few moments today to explore that theme of reunification that occurs both in the Haftorah and in the Torah portion. There are two words in the parasha, literally the word Vayigash, which is the name of the parasha, and one in the Haftorah, Echad, that lead us to see the importance of unity in our tradition, albeit from two different angles. So we have Vayigash and we have Echad. The opening word of the parasha is Vayigash, referring to Judah coming forward. Just a bit later, Joseph uses the phrase Gishuna to invite his brothers to approach him. In this case, reunification occurred because Judah and Joseph were both willing to take the risk to either come forward or to invite the other to approach. So here, human beings initiated the reunification. In the Haftorah, reunification requires divine intervention. Ezekiel shares the vision that God will bring about the reunification of the tribes of Israel. In verse 22, it says, "I will make them a single nation in the land on the hills of Israel, and one king shall be king of them all. Never again shall they be two nations, and never again shall they be divided into two kingdoms. Ve'asiti otam lagoy echad ba'aretz, Velo yiyu od lishtei mamlachot od. In this case, a key word describing the reunification is the word echad. God is going to make us one. So how do we as Jews coexist with these two ideas of reunification, both coming forward as individuals, but also fulfilling God's vision of being echad? A place where we see that coexistence on a daily basis is communal prayer. So we are called to reunite as a Jewish community in a minyan, but it is up to each of us to come forward and invite others to approach. In a discussion from the Talmud in Brachot, describes just how tenacious we should be to invite others to reunite with us. Our own opportunity to say gishuna in order to fulfill God's vision for us to be beyachad together or echad as one. Story is shared of Rav Nachman, who was too weak and unable to come to synagogue to pray. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "We will bring a minyan to your home to pray." Rav Nachman declined, saying he didn't want to impose on the community. So Rabbi Yitzchak persisted, saying he would tell the congregation to send a messenger to Rav Nachman to let him know when the minyan was praying so that he could pray at the same time. Rabbi Yitzchak found a way to invite Rav Nachman forward to communal prayer because our prayers are most heard by God when the congregation is praying together. This story shows how the human action of gishuna, inviting to approach, is key to God's vision of echad, a unified people. A component of the brothers reuniting in the parasha was being willing to take a risk. In fact, Joseph became so emotional in the moment, he could no longer control himself. It says, "Velo yachol Yosef lehitapek." Couldn't control himself. Praying in a community can involve some risk to us emotionally as well. Shiva Minyan is a special place that fulfills God's vision of unity, yet can require human beings to take a risk. It's a place where emotions are raw and may overflow. I recently attended a funeral and then the Shiva Minyan for a friend's mother. I didn't know the mother, and the friend and I have been in contact, but not close. But in both spaces for me, the memories of my own father's funeral and Shiva came forward, essentially, velo yachol lehitapek, for me personally. But in many ways, it drew me closer to her, and I know my presence helped to keep her present, connected, reunited with the Jewish community. So what are the spaces that you choose to come forward? You approach or you invite others to approach to be echad. A friend shared with me recently that for her, it's the swell of the congregational voices during Eitz Chaim Hi, and maybe you felt that this morning. Doesn't matter which tune, it can be any of the tunes. But that moment when we are putting the Torah away and the whole congregation is just together is something that draws her in. And as Rabbi Megdal spoke about recently, perhaps it's sharing your Hebrew name as you are literally called forward to the Torah, reunifying yourself with the intentionality of your family for giving you that name or the choice you made to take that name. So I wanted to give a moment this morning. It's, December 31st. We're a smaller, intimate group. To give you a moment to share, are there times that you say gishuna to yourself, things that bring you forward, or to others to be part of echad? And so I wanted to open it up. And I am also a teacher, so I'm good with wait time. I can tolerate crickets for a bit. Yes.
I wasn't a minyan goer, but my parents died, one died, and then the next, when I was done with was saying Kaddish for them. It was a short time. And so I got into the routine of coming to either morning or evening minyan. And now that time is several years past, but I learned, as much as I have always loved coming on Shabbat, that you're such an important person at the minyan, and looking down the hall, whether it's the morning or the evening, like, is that 10th person coming? You are such an important person, and it's like a routine of the day, and there are people who come and go. It's not always exactly the same, but there are the regulars, and to feel like really see each other and know who's the good lifter and who wants the Robin, and we remember Boris, the blessed memory, who no one could be faster And it's really like a voice of a community in a very special way for me.
So Glenda was sharing, I'm just repeating for people who didn't hear or are at home. So I'm just going to paraphrase. So Glenda was just sharing about when she lost her parents in succession and became a regular Minion participant, and how that, kind of getting into that routine has stuck with her over the years, and the importance that an individual plays in making the Minion to help others come forward as well when they're in their time of need. Thank you for sharing, Craig.
In the same spirit, about 12 and a half years ago, my brother passed away, and we were living in a rental house in Potomac. And we had Shiva at the house, and about 80 people showed up in this small house. And the voices together while we were davening, especially when we did Elena, where everybody knows it and everybody sings, it made me feel like the congregation put their arms around me and said, we're not letting go till we know you're okay. And in the spirit of Yachad coming together, that, I think, is it for me. I mean, that's what really made me feel whole, welcome, and protected.
So thank you, Craig. So Craig was just sharing about his own experience with Shiva Minyan at a house. And when so many people showed up to help make the Shiva Minyan, he just felt embraced and really felt that Yachad feeling. Yes?
Well, Craig talked about the congregation embracing him. I'd like to mention one person in the congregation embracing my family. There's a person whose mother took care of my children at nursery school, and who trained my older daughter, my younger daughter, and all you do about business. And I feel that person has embraced my family.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now I have to repeat it, which feels weird. But I want to make sure my mom hears at home, and I know she's watching. So thank you for sharing, just sharing about feeling how an individual can make you feel embraced as well, and sharing about how their family, my mom was the nursery school director here and taught their children. And then I was the bat mitzvah tutor for both girls and for your wife.
We have so many families and also Bethel teams right now in Israel, and it's interesting. We were talking about like the reunification of Israel and unification at some point of the southern and northern kingdoms. And every time I go, I feel like brought into the whole. Like the when you put a little bit of oil in boiling water, and at first there's like 2 or 3 different little orbs, and then they like sort of seek each other out, and they become like a large amoeba. I kind of feel like that when I go to Israel. Like I feel like sucked into the whole, like immediately. That I don't have to like stand out or be extra Jewish or yell about my identity or defend my Jewishness or my beliefs or my support of Israel. Like it's just this enormous. When Craig mentioned like the whole Minyan, like giving him a hug, like that's what it feels like for me to be in Israel. But like the country is embracing you on a regular basis with its language, with its music, with its culture, with everything that like goes with being in a country that is a Hebrew-speaking Jewish country, despite all of the, issues and, Glenda, no, don't talk about it. Anyway, right. But I've been really enjoying watching all of the social media posts from, and there's the Washington Jewish Week has an article too now about Rabbi Harris on the front cover. That's about as close as we've ever seen his face on any publication. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's really amazing to watch all of their happenings and adventures in Israel, as well as all of our other families who are just there by themselves going on vacation, taking their kids to see it for the first time. It's just great.
So thank you, Chazan. So Chazan Franken was just sharing about the feeling you have of reunification when you go to Israel, and thinking about it now with the teenagers that we have there with Rabbi Harris and families who are sharing, but that feeling that you get when you go there and you don't have to feel othered and you don't have to feel like you have to defend being Jewish because you are there. So thank you for sharing that. We probably have time for just a couple more. Alan? Thank you. So feeling reunified when you were in another country, but being embraced by the Jewish community there and being able to find that different places. Did someone have their hand up over here?
I just had a milder version of Pete. He said, before COVID, I used to travel a certain amount, quite a bit for work, and I would always try and go to the local shul, and it just felt like home, like a warm drumbeat to my life.
So that feeling of finding the local shul when you're away, and I think you described it as being a drumbeat to your life, which is a beautiful, beautiful idea. It reminds me of when our family took the first time we took a cruise, and we were there on a Friday night, and they said anybody who wants to celebrate Shabbat on the ship, come down to the dining area, and we'll have challah and grape juice. And so, I said to the family, I was like, we should go. Like, what if there's somebody who wants to do it and there's nobody there to lead it or something like that? And everyone's like, ugh, Mom, but okay. And we went, and sure enough, on that trip, we showed up, and I think it was like one other person or two other people maybe showed up, but they wouldn't have stayed and done the brachot had we not been there, right? And so that importance. And then the second time we went on a cruise, we were like, oh, remember how important it was? And they were like, okay, Mom. So, we went because we were like, remember last time and then we showed up and there was a whole group from Israel there. But it was very meaningful in a different way. And they managed to make everybody feel comfortable, no matter if you were egalitarian, not egalitarian, and how it all worked. And it all worked great. And there was like a rabbi. It was wonderful. So, yes. Mm-hmm.
Is a cruise rabbi.
A cruise rabbi. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing how you feel that feeling of being encouraged to come forth, or feeling of echad. It's all very important. And in a wonderful way, our parasha and haftarah this week help us see that balance of God's divine plans and our own roles as human beings to create unity. Unity within our own selves, like when Joseph can no longer control himself. Unity in our families, when Joseph beckons to his brothers to approach. Reuniting as community members, as we just talked about, through communal prayer opportunities, and becoming echad as the Jewish people, living God's vision, as shared by Ezekiel. So back in 1987, B Mitzvahs also prepared a personal prayer. And at the time, I am 100% sure that my 13-year-old self did not see the connection between my personal prayer and my introduction to the Haftarah, this idea of reunification and echad. But I do now, and I hope you will as well as I read it. God of our fathers, as I stand here on the day of my bat mitzvah, I wish to thank my relatives, teachers, and friends for helping me prepare for this special occasion. I would also like to thank my parents for helping me reach this day. After my bat mitzvah, I will be taking on new religious, moral, and communal commitments, and I hope to do my best to fulfill each responsibility. Today, I am sharing my bat mitzvah with Dana Lavovsky, who lives in Russia and is not able to have a bat mitzvah. I'm glad to live in a land of freedom where I can practice my religion freely, and I hope someday Dana Lavovsky will also have this freedom. Amen, and Shabbat Shalom.
Amen.